So we both went out and saw this one. To me, I was a pretty big fan of The Big Short. One of my favorite movies, to be honest. Adam McKay, love the things he does. I mean, you talk about what Step Brothers, the other guys. What else, right? I mean, him and Will Ferrell are kind of, they have their own production company, Gary Sanchez Productions. Anyway, so he did The Big Short, which is probably one of his biggest, dramatic directing roles. But let's start off with what were your expectations going into it, and then we'll talk about how it lived up to those.
Well, I mean, I think I had pretty high expectations. First, it's Adam McKay coming off, obviously, The Big Short. This movie had a ton of hype around it, Golden Globes and
Mm-hmm.
other awards wise. Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Sam Rockwell, Amy Adams, really good cast.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, my expectations, excuse me, they were pretty high for this movie,
Pretty
obviously,
high, yeah.
and I'd definitely been anticipating this movie for a good year or two.
Mm.
So yeah, really high expectations.
I have to say the same. I went into it like you said. The cast was incredible, and even before this movie came out, right? You heard the Golden Globe nominations, right? It was announced for all these Golden Globes. No one's seen it yet. Of course, the critics have, and just a lot of buzz around it. I will be honest, the trailer didn't look amazing to me, but I think all the other stuff kind of, clouded that a little bit, and just I was still willing to see it, even though the
Yeah,
trailer didn't win me over per se. Um, yeah, high expectations as well for me. So that might explain our next thoughts here. So, what are your thoughts of the film? Try to be a little bit brief.
sure. I don't know. Look, I enjoyed the film. I thought it was a good time. Like I enjoyed the film. I didn't think it was overly funny. Like I think definitely it had its moments, and largely because of Steve
Mm-hmm.
Carell. I think the first act, or even maybe two acts, I think largely were kind of unfocused, and I think for the average moviegoer who's not interested in politics or interested in the history of it, is going to pretty much not check out. But I think they're definitely going to get me a little bit bored because I mean, really, the way the movie's marketed is for only about the last 30 minutes of it is really how the movie's marketed with surrounding the Iraq War, surrounding Dick Cheney's time as vice president. So a large part of the movie is kind of building up this character of Dick Cheney. Um, Ultimately, though, Christian Bale with a really good performance, Amy Adams, a really good performance, Steve Carell is funny,
Mm-hmm.
Sam Rockwell, pretty funny. Ultimately, I did enjoy this film. I don't think it's one of the better films of the year. I think a lot of the scenes in the first act or two were felt very disconnected. They didn't feel like. I don't think the film had a great. It didn't flow terribly well for at least the first hour and a bit, and ultimately, I was a little bit disappointed. But I still enjoyed the film, and I think it was still worth seeing. Is it worth seeing
Hmm.
in theaters? Probably not. It doesn't really add to it. But definitely check it out if you're interested in politics or interested in Adam McKay or Christian Bale. I think it's worth seeing, but maybe just wait till it comes to Netflix or some other streaming service.
Yeah. I it's tough because I think the whole thing, right, was advertised as Dick Cheney, Vice, right? And the way it actually turned out was it was pretty much a caricature of Dick Cheney. And I feel like it never took itself seriously, pretty much like you said, until that third act where we get into the Iraq War and all that stuff, and just kind of the recent stuff. But like you said, kind of unfocused at times. I feel like Adam McKay was really trying to, re grasp at what he did with The Big Short, right? And why wouldn't he, right? But I think he took The Big Short and kind of went too far with this, right? You talked about the narration, right, with Jesse
Right.
Plemons,
I didn't even mention that. Yeah.
and you mentioned that you didn't like that much, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. But again, I think that's something that Adam McKay saw. Oh, well, it worked really well in The Big Short. You have like Margot Robbie doing some parts of it too. Um, and so let's put it in Vice. It just didn't really work that well with the movie. Um, or at least you have a different character do the narrating,
Yeah.
or something like that. But of course, performances, I think were all great. Sam Rockwell, great, like you said, Steve Carell, pretty much playing himself. Honestly,
Yeah.
In Donald Rumsfeld, Amy Adams, like you said, Christian Bale. Really, really great performance. But yeah, I just felt like it was off base a little bit throughout. I did like it. But yeah, it's just, again, with our high expectations going into it, right? It was just a little tough, as it just didn't live up to those. And I think maybe that's our fault, right, for going in with high expectations. Maybe higher than what could have been met. But yeah, I just, little unfocused at times, didn't take itself too seriously. And the thing with me, though, is, like, especially towards the end with Act 3, they were tackling serious events, right? And trying to build it as, like, a drama, serious stuff. And then you get scenes, like that one scene early on in the movie where you get, like, the credits rolling as a joke,
Sure.
right? And you get, like, these weird kind of editing things that Adam McKay throws in there. So, I just feel like you went a little too far in taking it kind of, joking a little bit. And like you said, I didn't find it overly funny. Some laughs, of course, in there, but I didn't find a lot of the techniques that he was trying to be very successful, especially like that credit scene. But anyways, so that's Vice. I didn't quite live up to my expectations.